the life of a child and parenting, and is there something special or specific about how Hindu children traditionally are parented according to what the Shastra says. I mean, everybody knows, and everybody catches in the West, catches hold of one aspect of the parenting, which is sending the children to Gurukula during the difficult, hormonally difficult years, teenage, correct? And you know this, Shweta, we might as well do it now because it's starting. Yeah.
Can we put Zoom on this?
Can we have the Adobe and Zoom together? Because how will all the people here listen to that?
Could they come to migrate to
Yeah,
this
you
one?
tell them what to do. Yeah,
Okay.
here. So we'll start off with this only because now we are on a roll.
Can you all migrate to live stream?
Just
a
for
few
half an hour,
minutes?
yeah.
Oh,
Just
good.
for- yeah.
That sounds not even bad. Can you all? Oh, the sound won't come on. Can you all migrate to live stream
Write
for
it.
half an hour?
Write it.
It's
Tell
not
them
the
what is
sound on.
happening.
And because Swaminiji is going to make a video, okay?
Oh, I did the wrong thing again.
Oh, 30 minutes. Swaminiji. Okay. So, please, let's write it as well. Oops.
Okay. Yeah, half an
Okay,
hour is
good, love
good.
it.
Yeah, just in case if we have to redo or something like that.
We all have it. That's why Zoom came up. Came up if it's in the call for Zoom.
And then they want an article also. I don't know what will happen to that. We'll see. Okay.
Oh, good. No, we have to put this on record this one. We can change the name.
And put it so that it's centered like this, yeah, so that it's. There we go.
George started. Stop.
Is it starting it?
It's
already
already
started.
started,
Yeah,
so-
start, do it again.
No, I think if we start again, it's
Namaste. I'm sorry that I cannot be with all of you during this conference. But since this is the age, the digital age, Abhayaji asked me to send a video so that we can be together in this way. And I was asked to speak on the role of the mother in Hinduism in parenting, and this is an interesting topic. It brings to mind several questions such as, is there something specific called Hindu parenting? Is it like any other parenting? And also, if we are talking about parenting in general, what might be the role of the mother and the role of the father? Are they different? And most importantly, what does Hinduism have to offer to the Hindu Dharma? The Sanatana Dharma has to offer to the world in terms of this important role of parenting. So these are all wonderful questions, and I hope that they will be raised and discussed in the panel. One thing we know in terms of raising children in our culture, in our dharma, it is that the parenting takes on the role also of giving the child certain general values, system of values, which are common to all traditions, all religious traditions perhaps. Speaking the truth and not cheating others and those kinds of things. But more specifically, in the Hindu tradition, like other indigenous traditions, the child also learns the various aspects of the tradition from its parents. We have never had the practice until recently of sending the child to Hindu Sunday school, whether you call it Bala Vihar or Bala Gokulam, so many things are there, so many, Purna Vidya, all these things. Those are all recent developments. We didn't have that practice. We never had the practice of outsourcing the child in any way to learn the tenets of the tradition. It is because it's a lived tradition where the vision and the way of life go together in tandem, and the child learns the ways as they are practiced by the parents. So this is what makes the Hindu parenting unique and different from some of the mainstream traditions. Because what we have, even though we may say we have beliefs, but those beliefs always have a reason. We don't have some kind of a blind belief. There'll always be some reason. Only problem is the parents don't know the reason. And the parents say, our parents did this, so therefore we did this, and therefore you also have to do this. And of course the child rebels. So we see how, we see examples of this kind of parenting in the Upanishad itself. Satyakama wants to know. Satyakama is a little boy. He wants to know who his father is. He only is raised by a single mother, doesn't know who his father is, and then, wants to go to the Gurukula to learn, and there you have to, to go to the Gurukula, you have to have the thread ceremony, and you have to have a certain way of introducing yourself through the lineage, the gotra, the spiritual, teacher and the ancestors and the parents. So he says, who was my father? Who is my father? What is his name? Because I want to go to Gurukula, and without this, biodata, I will not get admission. So please tell me. And the mother, Jabala, says, she tells him the truth. She says, I don't know who your father is. I was working in so many houses as a servant, as a domestic help, and I don't know who your father is. It could be anybody. But you are my son, we know that much. And my name is Jabala, your name is Satyakama, and you can take on my name. Perhaps it's the first, here we are talking of retaining the mother's name. This is the first example where she says, you will now be known as Satyakama Jabala. My name is your name. I give you my name. You go tell your teacher in the Gurukula also. And imagine this boy, he goes to Gurukula on the open house day when when all the students, all the teachers, all the the parents are there. And when he comes his turn to introduce himself, who is your father, who is your mother, he says, I know my mother. And my mother says that she worked in so many houses as a domestic help that she doesn't know who the father is, therefore I don't know who the father is. But her name is Jabala and she has given me her name. And the teacher embraces this boy and says, if you are not qualified for this, the Vedic teaching, I don't know who is.
Wow.
This is the true definition of a Brahmana. The teacher says this. So this is a very big tip in Hindu parenting, in Hindu mothering, in Hindu fathering. We learn this from the Upanishad itself, and which is very beautiful. How the value, the universal and timeless value of truth speaking, what it does to the child. And if the parents are doing that naturally, they don't need to tell the child. We don't need to tell our children, speak the truth, because we are already, demonstrating that. Whereas generally, what happens because of the pressures of contemporary living, Kali Yuga, what have you, we practice double standards. We tell the child something, we tell the child you have to speak the truth, but we ourselves, are found on the phone giving excuses why we can't do this, why we can't do that, crafting certain stories. And the child is very sensitive, very pure hearted, very clever, and it sees this discrepancy and it doesn't know what to make of it. It's jarring. This is something we see this. And that's why in all the Upanishads, whether it is the story of Satyakama or whether it is the story of little Nachiketa, who is also, known for his truth speaking, for his perseverance, all these things, it's imbibed from the parents. So the Hindu Dharma is not a series of tenets or some beliefs that have to be drilled into the brain of this child. It's a vision for whose attainment a conducive way of life called dharma, is prescribed in the Upanishads. The way of being, a universal matrix of norms that I have to follow. This is what is talked about. And the child learns by osmosis. One becomes a Hindu by osmosis, not by conversion. This is something which is very unique to the indigenous traditions, and the Hindu Dharma is the indigenous tradition of Bharat. And then the next thing we need to know is that the Hindu Dharma is very conducive to the right kind of parenting because of its emphasis on the togetherness of the mother and the father with the child. This is what is the real meaning of the word grihastha. Grihastha means grihe tishtati, the one who remains at home. These days nobody is at home. The elders are somewhere in senior care and the children are in another care. What is that called? Day care. Yeah? And the parents are in corporate care. This is what happens. Nobody is at home. Child is also not farmed out. The elders, grandmother, grandfather are farmed out to senior care, and the parents are somewhere else. The house has one lock on it, that's what. The lock can be called grihastha because that's the only one that's at home. So this is not our way, because in our tradition we recognize that the formative years, 0 to 5 generally, are very crucial for the child, because the birth itself is a big severance from being connected to the source, the mother. And once the cord is cut, there is this anxiety that starts. The child wants to always look for the mother, look for the father too, but immediately it's more connected to the mother because it has spent 9 months within her womb. So the child is always looking for the source. And in terms, from the standpoint of the child, this source is infallible. The mother is a goddess. The father is God. So the child seeks this connection. It is wanting that connection. So therefore, in our tradition, we never had this concept of, kindergarten, okay, but we didn't have this concept of pre-KG, Sending this child to school before pre-KG means sending the child to school even before it weighs 1 kg. Yeah, that is what it is. You farm it out. So this is the whole kind of a thing. So this connection is there, and if that connection is disturbed between the parents and the child, especially in the formative years, there is this constant feeling of low self-esteem and abandonment. This is what even the psychologists call that years from 0 to 5. It's called that the formative years of this unconscious. And of course, one cannot help the unconscious from forming, but we can at least, in our parenting, ensure that this unconscious is not a heavy unconscious, so that the child is able to recover. The child is able to, it feels connected all the time. That is what, the whole thing is. And then the another thing which is very unique about the Hindu parenting is this question of imparting this self-esteem to the child. Why? Because in the Hindu tradition, it's the self, the Atman, the Atma is completely acceptable. In fact, it's the most adored thing, it's the most worshipful thing, it's the only thing that is there. It is revealed in the Upanishad as Bhagavan. One is Bhagavan, there is nothing other than Bhagavan, and you are that Bhagavan. And even in the way of life, there is a way to constantly be in touch with this truth, even if one has not studied the Veda. As a result of which, one helps oneself to have a solid self-esteem, so that one is prepared to receive this teaching when one is ready. And so, right since the childhood, we don't say that the child is born in sin. We don't have any kind of, we don't have a word for sin. The word Papa doesn't have a translation in English at all. Papa is just omissions. They are omissions and commissions that yield the fruits of discomfort in this or other lives. That's all it is. Omissions and commissions in the face of righteous life, dharma, etc. And so therefore, the birth of the child itself is seen as a great miracle, as Bhagavan itself. Children are seen as incarnations of Bhagavan. And even the prenatal samskaras, ensure that this connection between the children and the parents are always there. May the child grow up to be having self-esteem and be a well-adjusted citizen. And plus, after the birth of the child, there are ways in which that connection and that self-esteem and that connection to the whole, to Bhagavan, is constantly iterated through the practices of everyday living. Like, for example, the mother, and the father, especially in the traditional, in traditional times, in India, even today, we have the habit of putting something on the forehead, and that is all for the indweller within. This is for the indweller within. And it's very beautiful. Everything is for that, the sake of the indweller. And the child is told that Bhagavan is within you. Bhagavan is also outside, but what is inside is also Bhagavan. That voice, that conscience, that which tells you to do the right thing is the voice of Bhagavan. And for the sake of this Bhagavan, all the rituals, all the ways of life. So when we put on clothing, it is for Bhagavan. The flower in the hair, and then the kumkumam or chandanam that is put here is all a daily worship for the truth of the self that inhabits this body mind sense complex. So this separation, the child learns that there is something within and this is what it is. So there is really, when the child grows up like this, there is no problem with self-esteem. There is no problem at all. Because what self-esteem, what low self-esteem? The child is told you are Bhagavan. And everything that you do is inspired by Bhagavan. That is, the child is taught Karma Yoga at a young age. Think of Bhagavan and do this. Doesn't matter if you can't, get whatever you desired. Doesn't matter if what you got is less than what you anticipated. Next time you pray harder. We teach the child prayer as a wonderful tool for connecting to Bhagavan and for changing that, what is called destiny, prarabdha. This is, otherwise one can feel kind of distraught and completely at a loss. What is this prarabdha? And I'm a victim of my karma, not the Hindu child. The Hindu child is told, you pray. That is the connection. Prayer itself is an action. And that action will also have the result of changing your very bhagya. This is what the whole thing is. And so this way, the child is brought up as it's a kind of a very beautiful sense of agency. It's not the sense of ego-based agency where the child says, I am everything and I am entitled to this, that. And it's neither a feeling of victimization that I am always constantly feeling oppressed by all these forces, but it is a sense of agency where the child grows up feeling interconnected to the whole. This is what is very important. So from this connection established through prayer, the child gains a sense of placement, purpose and agency. It is wonderful. And therefore, as parents, one has to make the time to have this kind of a transmission, to give this kind of a transmission of the dharma to the children. And for that, one needs some time. One needs to make room in the life. With the modern parenting, we go in extremes. Since the parents are at work, I find increasingly that there is a lot of guilt at the end of the day. So there is this feeling like, I haven't been able to be with this child. So that guilt makes one not be impartial. That guilt itself brings with it certain pressures of what to do, and one makes wrong decisions. One becomes too permissive because of this guilt. Otherwise, on the other extreme, we have the helicopter parents, always chop, 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 circling, not giving the child the space to develop. We need the middle road, somewhere in between this over-permissive, guilt-ridden parenting and, this kind of a thing. Helicoptering, always, supervising, micromanaging the life of the child. And in this sense, it's also good to have the elders involved. if the elders are not in senior centers, we have an osmosis, we have a natural way of learning the dharma and healthy parenting. We have, because what the child wants is a lap. That's all it wants. It cries, mother was mean, mother said I could not have another cookie. And you go, there was always a grandmother or a grandfather. Grandmother means who? Father's mother, yeah. And she will immediately validate the child, or even mother's mother. But it's more fun if it's the father's mother. She'll immediately validate the child. She will say, you are right, you should have had another cookie. She is wrong. In fact, her whole family is wrong. Even before the wedding, they did all these kinds of problems. This is what the child needs. The child is fine. This is instant therapy. This is, our dharma has all the beautiful ways of providing this instant therapy. All the child needs is a lap. Now, as Pujya Swamiji says, there are no more laps. Every lap has a laptop. That's what he says. So this we have to correct. And in order to do this, all the unparented aspects of the adult parents, they have to parent themselves really. Those aspects of themselves that are feeling neglected, feeling wanted, feeling wanting, that has to be resolved. And from that place, one can be a better, better at parenting children. I'm not saying that the Bal Vihars and all are not useful. They are very useful in the current day. In fact, we cannot do without them. And therefore, to make the efforts of the teachers of the Bala Vihars very effective, we have to also go along with that. We cannot outsource our children to Bala Vihars and then, expect them to learn everything, be proficient in Sanskrit and, all the Shastra and all the shlokas, while we ourselves don't know anything. We have to learn along with them. And when the parent is sound, then the children, of course, will be sound. The parenting will be sound. So therefore, really, we have to focus on the being in the right place and taking care of, the adults taking care of themselves, especially in this society of immigrants, taking care of one's own needs and healing one's own wants and feelings that come in the way of parenting. So with this, if we do this, then our children will continue to be to grow and be successful in all walks of life and set an example for all to see. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat. And I will tell you who to send it to. I will send the email address.
Okay, can you stop that one to just tell them that we'll be...
Yeah, we will start immediately.
Is it start or stop?
I want to stop it and restart it, so it's not on the beginning of that.
The video was off, sounds off, and let's stop.
And I've got the mark on the checker. Oh, they're already here, Swami. Do you
Oh,
know?
good.
Maybe they
They
never left.
migrated.
Oh, I didn't push the last one. This, did that go?